Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why it was planned this way that I come right after the COC session, right? But I think it is very apt that this happens because ultimately, I think what I'm going to talk about is probably a topic that we all grapple with at times. And I'm going to talk about employer branding, but how do we endorse the company values? And we've spoken a lot about that to really get a competitive edge. And I work for Tech Mahindra, so I want to give a Tech Mahindra story. But happy to take questions, and I promise to take 15 minutes, I thought it was. Come down to 10, is it? So I'll take 5 minutes more than this. I've always said to all my employees and in every forum that look at the traits that make you unique and then turn them into stories. But use those stories really to attract and retain talent. Make it a differentiator for your business, because really it's always been that the HR folks are talked about and said you're in charge of employer branding, but employer branding is really a strategic call of the company. You don't have a great employer brand if your CEO and all your CXOs don't endorse it. And if it's not one of the pitches that you do to your customers, your clients, then it's just somewhere in the presentation, right? I'm not going to spend too much time, but obviously companies that have a great employer brand outperform the others. And there's been enough studies on that. We all are aware, and that's why we spend so much time as HR folks into the employer branding. Here is what the Mahindra Group is, and I represent the Mahindra Group. What you see here, ladies and gentlemen, is our first advertisement ever published in 1945, right? And the interesting story is that the Mahindra and Mahindra was not Mahindra and Mahindra, it was Mahindra and Mohammed. And Mr. Mohammed went and became the first finance minister of Pakistan, so we had to change because we had already printed everything on M&M. So the only other solution was Mahindra and Mahindra. But look at what the first advertisement of the Mahindra Group talked about. It did not talk about the product. And remember, as HR folks, this is 1945, we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about ethics, meritocracy, dignity of the human toil, and diversity. You know, we talk about diversity today, and it's a very cool thing to talk about diversity, but in 1945, this is what the Mahindra Group talked about. And to this day, this is our differentiator. And whenever you see anything on Tech Mahindra, you will see that we still talk about the very same. And why? Just a glimpse of the company. We are about now 157,000 people, 105 countries, 142 nationalities, so it's complex. And therefore, the brand, when we talk about the employer brand, we're talking about 105 countries, because you can't have a great employer brand in India and everything else, really sort of you are struggling. So the reason it's important is it's helped us grow. The reason it's important is wherever you will see us presenting to a customer or a client, this is on the top. In fact, yesterday there was a meeting I couldn't attend because we were with a client and a customer, and the only differentiating factor when he awarded, we signed the agreement yesterday, was employees. The people factor, simply because 64% of our cost is people. We only have a product that's people, and if the employer brand gets a cold or gets a nosebleed, then every company, the whole company gets a bleed. And our challenge is how to be consistent in 105 countries. Okay, so that's the story I'm going to talk about in the next 15 minutes. I'm going to be a little fast because of the paucity of time. I have 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So in this slide, in the previous slide, we call Tech Mahindra as a purpose-driven, people-centric, and performance-led. But it's words, right? 3 words which sound nice. This thing. How do we make it come alive? How do you make your employer brand come alive? The first thing to really think about is you are unique. So you have to make sure that the employer brand is not decided by 5 CXOs sitting in a room. You have to find out the uniqueness. And I started by saying unique traits and uniqueness about your company. You have to find out the uniqueness about your company, and that really has to come alive for everyone, including your employees. And we said we were purpose-driven, people-centric, and performance-led. But it's woolly, right? People don't understand these words, so we have to make it come alive. And the next few slides, I'm going to tell you how it comes alive for us and why it is still a sustainable differentiator. So we talked about purpose-driven. Very clearly, we do this. It's a strong belief. You see Mahindra rise. Everywhere you see Mahindra, you see rise. And one of the facets I'll talk about rise is this, that we are purpose-driven because we believe that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it for our children. And what it means is, as an organization, we have to be beyond the profits, beyond the business, and we have to mean something for the community. If you shake somebody in the middle of the night and say, "Who are you?" they talk about rise. And on the left side, you see what rise belongs, or what is rise to a person. There are three pillars or three tenets that we talk about. Number one, we say accepting no limits, alternative thinking, and driving positive change. I can tell you that at 160,000 people are empowered, that if they face a customer issue and it is in these three tenets, they can take a call and they will never be reprimanded. These are ingrained in every single one of the persons that work for us, and rise is DNA. But we also did something else. If you see down here, how do we measure leadership? And we talked about values, we talked about leadership. Again, for a great brand, it has to be understood in one way. And for us, leadership, you can call it competencies, you can call it traits, are number one, the whole new mind. The left brain and the right brain. Great leaders, while they're good in revenues and EBITDAs, they also have to be good in history, culture, geography of every single country. And they are measured through this. So the whole new mind. The second one is mindfulness in the age of distraction. You know, we are so distracted these days. But as a Mahindra group leader or a Tech Mahindra leader, you have to be mindful of the here and now. You have to be mindful of who you are, where do you want to go. And you know, Anand used to always say, Anand Mahindra, that pause before you punch and reflect before you react. Pause before you punch and reflect before you react is nothing but mindfulness. Mindfulness in the age of distraction. The third is really, leaders have to be multipliers and not diminishers. They have to create more leaders. Outcomes are important, but if everybody is dead on the way, really you're not a great leader. Third is to learn to celebrate failures. Nobody's ever fired from TechM to fail. In fact, all of us have failed miserably in something that we've done, but we've given a lot of opportunities, and I'll talk about them as we go forward. And finally, trust. Leaders have to trust their followers, and followers have to trust their leaders. And 1 year ago, we refreshed our rise to look outwardly. And we have three more tenets. One is rise for a more equal world, which is all about climate change, inclusion, and ethics. They are part of rise. Second, rise to be future ready. What does the customers expect you to be? And it is about customer focus, technology, and innovation. And third is rise to create value. And this is all about entrepreneurship, scale, and impact. So internal facing and external facing. And this is the first pillar that we build our employer brand on. It has to be rise. This is probably the most important. We are people-centric. For an IT company to say that, people say, really? People-centric? IT companies are not people-centric. And I'll give you a story of why and how and what difference it has become. You know, when we started this journey 5 years ago, we went into all our employees around the world and said, what's our culture? And I got about 160,000 different answers. All in a similar genre, but different answers. And the worst is, when we actually benchmarked, a lot of people said, you know, our culture is defined in a presentation, which is a really great presentation, but somewhere between Page number 300 and 400 is the culture of the company. Can't have that. So we decided we will define our culture in one line. And that is on everybody's lips. And that is what we have to stand for, which is this: driving positive change, celebrating each moment, and empowering all to rise. And the three things we promise our employees everywhere around the world is, number one, we are a hardworking company. We drive positive change in the lives of our customers and customers' customers. You will have to work hard for the customer and the customer's customer. Second, celebrate each moment. It is allowed to have fun. TechM is about fun, and if you even come to our corporate office, you see there is actually quite a strange corporate office. My office doesn't have a desk, and it's very informal, but we like to have fun. And there is nobody around the globe in Tech Mahindra that will say, why are you making so much noise? Why are you having so much fun? You can't. And the final thing is, we are very particular about empowering all to rise. We hire from colleges, but people are shocked that we give huge responsibilities at a young age. Our country heads are 25 years old. They run 20, 30, 40 million, $100 million regions. 25-year-olds. And a lot of people in my HR team, I have Sudhanshu here who heads globally, we call it BCCI, but benefits, compliance, etc. He's under 40. I have my, it is about enabling youngsters to take on large roles. It's part of our culture. So this is ingrained. Anywhere you go at Tech Mahindra, you will hear this from everybody, right? Then we said, okay, what else can we say which is unique? We heard this great term called employee value proposition. And we said, what will we do? What will be our employee value proposition be? Because, we don't pay well. I mean, we pay well, but not the best. We're not the largest. So what is the employee value proposition? Here is one thing that TechM does, and every single employee vouches for it, is freedom to explore. You are given complete wings to fly, and our thing is, if you can dream, and if you have the ability to dream big, we will give you wings to fly. And I always give my example. I'm not an engineer, by the way. I never worked for IT before TechM. I've been in TechM 11 years. I ran a $450 million business. I currently do 4 functions: HR, marketing, corporate services, supply chain. I'm not an engineer, but I was given wings to fly. And it's all thanks to the organization that I work for. And freedom to explore is something that comes naturally to us. And it's unique because other companies don't do it. And therefore, our employer branding is around rise, around freedom to explore. And then the third thing that people talked about is, okay, culture is great, we know about the employee value proposition, how do we express it? What do we say? I can't go to her and say, by the way, freedom to explore is what I like, this is TechM. So we said we must have an expression, and I'm sure if you go to social media or anything, you'll see this. We said we will express it by saying, love to be TechM. And why love? Because love is an emotion that accepts the good and the bad. So you like the company, the good and the bad. And therefore, everybody expresses it to say, love to be TechM. Love to be TechM BPS, love to be TechM XDS, but it's always love to be TechM. And these three are so easily understood. It's a flow. People don't have to really mug up these things, right? Because that's how your heart expresses it. And everything that we do is really around this. It's whether it's love to be TechM or it is any campaign, even a business campaign is run around this. Okay. The second thing is our storytellers are none other than the people, because the other problem is that there is such a complicated communication network in most companies, nobody understands it. Because you send mails and stuff. The problem is, today your employees are not on those mediums. And therefore, this is the last thing I would say is very important, is you have to be in the medium your employees are in. For example, I'll give you an example. If you ever go to Spotify, all of you know what Spotify is? Our Rise songs are on the Spotify playlist. It is there for everyone. Our podcasts are on Spotify. We have WhatsApp stickers. Our Rise is on WhatsApp stickers. We have memes. We have Gen Z language. we have everything that our employees feel. Everything is gamified, even Rise. And people laugh, say, yeah, your Rise is gamified. I said, yes, it's on snakes and ladder game. Because people like to understand the nuances of Rise through gamification. And this is why the employer brand is so powerful, because people understand it. That's why we said people-centric. And finally, we said we are performance-led. Clearly, when you talk about the brand, we're the fastest growing IT brand. I mean, TechM, when we started this journey 5 years ago, we said, gosh, nobody knows us. We are today the fastest growing IT brand in the world. Okay, and this is unique. But we've done something else. It's of no use if your employees don't believe it and it's not resulting in business. So this is what it is. In the last 5 years, we are the highest engagement score company in the IT industry, in the Mahindra Group. We're at 4.58 out of 5. We are the lowest attrition company in the IT industry. By the way, it's not 17, it's 10% today. The next one is double. So at 160,000 people, if you have 10% less than your competition, you are impacting about $200 million, I think, right? Thirdly, we are the highest in internal fulfillment, which means our promise to give wings to fly, our promise to say freedom to explore is translated into 72% internal fulfillment. So these are the matrices that tell you people believe in the story and they follow the story. And finally, this is just a glimpse of who we are. We are the number one employer for women in India. We are the number one employer, period. Not only in India, but in Philippines and around the world. Diversity and inclusivity, which was a plank that we took. We are probably the number one around the world. We won everything, including being now the 5th year in the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index. We have won about 8 Stevie Awards and Brendan Hall Awards. But the awards are not important. It's our belief in what makes a difference. Even in 2023, you see this one came out a few weeks ago. Yeah, in 23 also the number one company for women to work. And this is the reason why we do a lot of things which are different. For example, when we took this plank the first time, and when we talked about our expression of love to be TechM, etc., and people actually came and said, why? Why would you do this? We are the only company probably that has 12 active LGBT communities, because diversity and inclusivity is big for us. You know what? Out of the last 20 deals, 18 are won on the fact that this is important. And today your customers want this. Today your employees want it. And therefore, any employer branding that is not you is not really a great employer branding. And it's been done with all the employees. There was a huge exercise that we took, which really talked about what it should be. And it doesn't change. It just doesn't change. People laughed at us. Again, 5 years ago, when we said, oh, diversity, inclusivity, freedom to explore, we'll be the number one employer for women to work, we'll be the number one employer for careers in India. It doesn't happen in IT. And therefore, we stood out, and we stood out hugely. And to me, that makes us unique, and that is really the value proposition that we have for every single Tech Mighty in the company. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you. If there's any question I can take, otherwise I'm anyway over time now. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.